All right, Frank, welcome to the WealthTech podcast. I am happy to have you on the show. Would you mind kind of giving a brief introduction of yourself and FileForms?
My pleasure, Mark. Thanks for having me today, and thank you for all the listeners out there tuning in. My name's Frank Tumminello. I'm CEO and co-founder of FileForms. FileForms is a software company focused on state and federal compliance in all 50 states, largely partnering with family offices, professional services providers, and business owners to help them keep their legal entities compliant in all states they operate in. So our platform is providing services such as company formations, such as LLCs that are getting incorporated for the first time, but really all the entities that already exist, specifically in the family office realm, that need to be kept in good standing across all the different states that they operate in with the registered agent, filing an annual report each year. So that's a little bit on our company, and very excited to share more.
Yeah, as we had a chance to talk earlier, Frank, family offices love entities. They create a lot of them, and obviously there's a lot of filing that goes on with that. So it's great to hear that there's some solutions for that. Tell me, why did you start FileForms? What was the genesis for creating the company?
Yeah, I started FileForms after running into the exact problem that we now solve. When I was actually working in my prior role at a financial services focused private equity firm, I was managing my very first legal entity on my own to hold a real estate investment that I had made. And turns out I missed my annual report and had to pay the fine. And the frustrating part wasn't just the miss of an arbitrary date, but actually it was realizing that there wasn't a modern solution for folks like myself, professionals that were trying to really take their first entrepreneurial leap at that point in my career, and came to realize that it would be such a nice benefit to have a reliable way to keep track of state filing obligations across all entities and all states. At the same time, I realized that there was somewhat of a gap for entrepreneurs versus the investment operators, where the investment operators, a lot of times are managing multiple legal entities across many states. So once I kind of took some interest in this industry, I started talking to my CPA friends, my attorney friends, other professional services providers and investors, and it came to my attention that they were very much relying on spreadsheets, emails, fragmented vendor portals to manage annual reporting and registered agent services and even their company formations. So to me, that felt like a real opportunity, hence why we built FileForms.
Yeah, it seems like a common story, regardless of what vertical you're in with the family office space, is too much reliance on keeping stuff in people's heads, too much reliance on email and spreadsheets versus systems. You've been at it just a little over 2 years. What lessons have you learned as an entrepreneur? I always love to talk to the founders when I have a chance. So, what are some of the, what's something that surprised you that maybe was a little bit easier than you thought, and what was a little bit harder than you thought it was going to be?
Yeah, I think the biggest lesson so far is just listening to your clients relentlessly, listening to their pain points, and really setting expectations early on to drive the highest impact work. Really, there's a ton of different things a customer can ask for any given day, and we obviously want to solve all pain points we can. But in compliance, as much as there is a lot of predictability, there is certainly things that fall outside of our control at times, such as state portals going down or the IRS EIN site being in maintenance mode. So I think really listening to clients, understanding their pain points, communicating very clearly upfront expectations is something you learn early on as an entrepreneur, and I think it makes all the difference. The other major thing is about product discipline. There's always a lot of nice-to-have features out there, one-off requests. Like I said, we definitely are people pleasers here at FileForms.
Yeah.
We want to make everyone happy. but really progressing those features and prioritizing those outcomes to reduce workflow and make the most efficiencies for the most amount of people is certainly how we approach our work every day, especially when serving family offices that have a super high bar for what technology can do or how things should be done, and supporting their employees to make lives easier. So.
Yeah, I always say that the hardest thing with product management is it's not figuring out what to do, it's figuring out what not to do when. You
Right.
know, that saying that Steve Jobs saying that he said says no 300 times before he gets to a yes is key, and kind of really focusing on solving kind of particular pain points. How have you seen clients' expectations evolve? I know it's been a short period of time since you've been in the marketplace, but how have you seen family offices, what they're coming to you with, and what their expectations are about your abilities?
Yeah, I think expectations have certainly conformed over time. I even remember working in the private equity firm that I was working at, which was a mid-sized firm, small back office, a lot of those same pain points that a family office would have from an administrative reporting standpoint. But I think early on, many folks were really just looking for a solution to get the work done. So just need to file it. Just want to get it off my plate.
Yeah.
Today, especially with family offices and professional services providers becoming more modern, managing larger portfolios, doing acquisitions, modernizing their solutions as the next generation takes over, real-time status, visibility, standardized workflows, audit trails that are updating real time, portfolio-wide reporting, proactive communication. These are all things, particularly when you're talking about state deadlines, that I think are becoming more and more table stakes. That folks are, wanting that real-time feed of, are they in good standing or not? And it's becoming less of a transactional business and more of an operating system for doing work efficiently in the compliance realm where we spend our time. So that's certainly something that I've observed, and I suspect it will continue.
Yeah, it is great to see the modernization of the family offices. I think there are a number of trends that are supporting that. Obviously, the next generation isn't looking to do business the way that maybe their parents had done, or the previous generation, in terms of manual paperwork, manual processes, lack of transparency. They expect things that they have things in their personal lives which are automated and graceful and intuitive in terms of technology that they use, and then when it comes to their family office, they're starting to expect the same. I think also you're starting to see a lot of vendors that are solving specific problems like yourself that help with that kind of vertical integration and allow these family offices to get deep solutions where they previously might not have. Tell me how you fit into a family office's tech stack, and what should family offices be thinking about as they're kind of designing their tech stack?
Yeah, FileForms sits in the tech stack as the system of record and the execution layer for state entity compliance. So we really centralize the entity data, the documents. We track jurisdiction-specific requirements and deadlines, the specific dates, the fees that it costs to file, and then we manage the work across all the different entities to ensure that they stay in good standing. That is essentially filing an annual report each year, being the local registered agent address in each of the jurisdictions that a company does business in, helping form new entities for, say, acquisitions or purchasing real estate, for example, and then also foreign qualifying businesses that perhaps as they establish nexus across new jurisdictions, ensuring that they are registered appropriately, have that local registered agent, and are in compliance with the Secretary of State. On top of that, we help family offices run compliance like an operating system by tracking roles, permissions, responsibilities across the entire portfolio. So the right internal team or the right internal team member or even external advisor has the right access to the right information and has the right responsibility assigned to them, helping to effectively streamline filings, streamline payments, which is another thing that is certainly a pain point, is just the whole payment function, invoicing, billing, collecting state fees, calculating state fees for that matter. That's really what our platform does, keeping everything clear, transparent, visible at all points of time throughout the year, so that there's really no one-off surprises. And the result is a portfolio level view of what we own, what's due, who's responsible for what's been done, what's been paid for, without needing a bunch of spreadsheets or fragmented vendor portals or one-off invoices coming to your physical mailbox. So that's really how we plug in to any pre-existing infrastructure or link as kind of the foundational piece to that family.
Obviously, family offices have to deal with a lot of complexity, and we talked about how they have to deal with a lot of entities. Where without a solution like yours, where do the family offices kind of break down, and what are some like horror stories that you've run across without naming names?
Generally speaking, folks are coming to us with a long list of entities. They typically don't have a single source of truth for that entity data. Details such as the jurisdiction, the registered agent information, the officers, the address. They might live somewhere in the spreadsheet or in someone's inbox or disparate vendor portal, but typically there's not kind of that one central source of truth. We really help with that. We can help take any of the information you currently have, reference the Secretary of State's site, and really kind of create that nice, clean audit of current state. We can wind down entities that are no longer needed, merge entities that should be aggregated. So that's one way. A lot of times also deadline management is more reactive than proactive. Teams relying on individual reminders, calendar notes, things of that nature to manage a portfolio of, at times, multi-millions, if not billions of assets. So when you're not taking a modern approach, things do fall through the cracks, unfortunately. And that can expose staff members, specifically when they're out of the office, perhaps on vacation, or managing a migration between vendors. Which really segues nicely into the next issue that we see quite prevalently is fragmented vendor relationships. A lot of times people are acquiring assets, different components of their portfolio in a very kind of ad hoc way. Before you know it, after a decade or after a generation, there's a bunch of fragmented vendors across all the different jurisdictions, different registered agents across the country, sending different notifications. And then there's also these exterior vendors that are trying to win the business as well. So what does that create? It creates a lot of confusion for staff who might not necessarily be relying on a single source of truth to keep things in order. It could end up complicating things more. So that's really where we feel like there's a vendor consolidation opportunity to bring everything in one place. And then generally speaking, roles and permissions are not clearly refined. When you ask a family office CFO or controller, hey, who does this? A lot of times they're pointing to their attorney, but then their attorney's pointing to the CPA, and then the CPA is pointing back to that individual. So rather than play a game of telephone with extremely important compliance requirements, why not just have clearly defined roles and permissions for folks to get this work done efficiently? And then largely payment documentation can get quite messy. A lot of times folks are invoicing portfolio companies that end up not doing the work at the Secretary of State level, or had already done it, and now there's redundancy. So once again, just having streamlined process for payments, documentation, roles, responsibilities, filing deadlines is really going to help the firm run more efficiently, remove the stress, keep things simple, stay at the forefront of compliance.
So, Corporate Transparency Act, the CTA, is the CTA dead? And then also, I think as a lot of family offices kind of rush to comply with the CTA, what sort of positive aspects have come out of that particular exercise, and what should family offices be thinking about going forward with the CTA?
Yeah, I wouldn't call the CTA dead. For the most part, it's dead for now.
Till next administration.
Probably, if I was a guessing man, as folks know, there is a pause on the regulation since the current administration took office. But I will say that the CTA was an exercise that we saw several family offices get their entities in order, kind of get that single source of truth implemented within their portfolio, really kind of lean into entity hygiene. As odd as that may sound, it's a real reality. So just standardizing the governance and kind of the change management for laws that can come in on short notice, as we did see with the Corporate Transparency Act. I think getting this work done to ensure that a system's in place and you have a proper piece of technology to support the portfolio is going to make you more poised for inevitable legal change within the law. So whether the CTA comes back or not, I won't speculate there. However, I would say there's no harm in having a clean back office with a strong operating system to manage entities, and FileForms can certainly help with that. And quite frankly, there's 50 states that also have their own compliance requirements, so I don't see that same stroke of the pen risk as you would with the CTA across all 50 states. In fact, states like New York have implemented their own version of the CTA thus far just for foreign reporting companies. However, that could be subject to change once the federal CTA perhaps does come back around. So stay tuned for more on the CTA. For now, we're focused on state compliance at FileForms.
Yeah, I mean, it's not necessarily such a bad thing. And sometimes when regulation it comes, it forces, family offices to modernize, put systems in place, take a look at how they're doing business, whether it makes sense, to implement better best practices. And as you said, sometimes even when things kind of get held up at maybe a national level, you definitely see some states moving forward. Some states are a lot more progressive with regulation, California and New York, and you still need to be prepared for that. Obviously, it wouldn't be a WealthTech podcast. We didn't talk about AI. How is AI impacting your business?
Yeah, AI has impacted our product in a very practical way. It helps us be much more proactive and more helpful inside the filing workflow itself. So clients could actually get from I need to file to it's done a little bit more quicker with less friction. We use AI internally quite a bit to better anticipate what a user is trying to accomplish, reviewing user journeys and things like that. Also, we're always trying to surface the right guidance and education at the right time to just allow our users to always feel well educated in what they're looking to do for their entity. We feel like this helps kind of reduce back and forth, which unfortunately is kind of the industry standard. Folks, working with other vendors probably have to do a lot of back and forth via email and phone. But when you're managing a large portfolio, having those predictive analytics and proactive motions are certainly going to help provide more peace of mind and better support. At the same time, we're very intentional about how we apply AI. We found that folks don't just want software; they really are seeking peace of mind. So our philosophy is really AI plus white glove customer service. A lot of the AI tools are certainly helpful resources for users to move quickly, confidentially. But a lot of times, there are folks that do need that personal touch from our teammates, and a member of our team is always available to help. So it's really kind of a balance of those hands-on experiences that, will not just sit in a silo, but also feed back into the AI initiatives that we do internally. So there is this feedback loop that I think is becoming more and more powerful, so that eventually every move we make is an AI first motion, which hopefully, as odd as this might sound, delivers a superhuman outcome, because technology is accelerating super quickly and more people will expect it.
I think that makes sense. I think, there's still going to be a need for a long time for the human in the loop. I think in a lot of ways, AI can help enhance the human interaction because it frees people up to be able to think a little bit higher level, be able to have some of the lower level tasks, such as filling out forms or even knowing intuitively and getting prompt about what needs to be done when. To do that, I think AI is, from a product standpoint too, also changing how people navigate systems. You don't necessarily sometimes need to know how to use the system. You can just, in a large language model, be able to just ask it questions and be able to interact with it that way in a very human manner. But I think all of that makes sense. Taking a look at the industry, obviously you've seen it evolve and starting to modernize over the past 2 years. But if you were to take a look at, the next 3 to 5 years, where do you see the family office industry going?
Yeah, I certainly think there will be a lot of innovation over the next 3 years. I think the family office industry is going to look to modernize their operating businesses. They're certainly going to look to standardize knowledge base, standardize different processes, such as administrative back office. There's definitely going to be, I think, a rising complexity in portfolios, which will likely lead to more need for, sustainable infrastructure to support that complexity. There will likely be more scrutiny from counterparties and folks trying to, compete with a lot of the technology. So they'll likely be, a lot of, exterior forces that are ensuring that data is well kept, is private, is secure. We're SOC 2 compliant. We take data very seriously. But with the wealth transfer that's unfolding, baby boomers selling their business, there certainly will be more family offices stood up in the modern era. So with that, hopefully you'll see more infrastructure that is modern from the get-go, which should streamline the ability for firms like ours to really serve in the most streamlined way. So ideally you see less spreadsheet-oriented and email-oriented workflows, more kind of cloud-based technology, mobile-optimized solutions, so that things can be managed on the go. I think there'll be higher expectations for control at the family itself, and certainly more kind of predictive analytics, AI influenced technology within workflows. I think at the end of the day, folks are trying to build scalable, portfolios that can, stand the test of time, and doing that as efficiently as possible should free up time and free up resources to further propel the next generation. So those are a few trends that we're certainly leaning into at our company. We're thrilled for kind of the next generation of family offices coming, and it's just been so impressive how the industry has taken off, even just in the few years that we've been serving it.
Yeah, it certainly is the golden age for family offices. You're seeing a lot more family office creation due to the wealth transfer. You're certainly seeing that generation be more technology positive. I think family offices are always going to be wanting to do more with less. They are always going to be running lean, but they're going to be able to do more with AI, in particular, AI-enabled platforms, which I think is how the majority of family offices are going to be exposed to AI, is through the vendors that they're using, and they're going to be embedding it within their systems, whether it's through back office reconciliation and management of big data sets, or even in a very front end way through these natural language models. I think SOC 2, as you mentioned, is extremely important as these family offices look to modernize their tech stack. They should really take a close look at the legacy software that they have in place, and make sure that the vendors that they are using are SOC 2 compliant. That should be kind of a table stakes. I think APIs and systems integrations have enabled firms to be able to create best of breed tech stacks, where in the past they've been a little bit more of a science experiment. And that really allows firms like yourself to really focus on a particular area of expertise and provide excellence in that area, where maybe a vendor that has a big portfolio can't necessarily focus on really kind of deep vertical solutions like that. I think family offices, the problem that they're going to see is, the good news is you're going to have more choice. The bad news is you're going to have more choice, and there's going to be some buyer confusion out there about how, what systems they should go to, how they build their tech stack. But that's really a high-grade problem compared to what it used to be, where they had to take maybe retail software that didn't have the permissioning and audit trails in place and really wasn't multi-entity, or the ability to maybe take something that wasn't, form fit for them, and then try to develop a lot of workarounds. So I think it's just the beginning, and it's only going to accelerate, which is great. Frank, I like to end the podcast on a more of a personal note with 3 questions that have nothing to do with WealthTech. You've had a chance to be in a number of movies as an extra. Can you tell me a little bit about that experience and how that came about?
Sure thing. Well, I can humbly say I've never started a movie, but I have been very fortunate to be in a few feature films over the course of time. The first one was when I was 14 years old. I was in a movie with Luke Wilson and Jimmy Buffett called Hoot by Carl Hyacin. The really cool part about that experience, not only being on set with those two legends, but also that was my childhood favorite book growing up.
Okay, so great.
It was amazing to participate in that project. And then most recently, I was in a film, had the honor of being in a friend of mine's film, Evan Kellman, a film called Barron's Cove, which is actually now streaming on Paramount Plus. So if you have a chance, check that out. Evan and I had the benefit of going to school together for a very long time at Pinecrest here in Fort Lauderdale. And he's a phenomenal young artist who is actually currently fundraising for his next feature film. So if there's any families out there or movie buffs or looking to be the next executive producer, that could be a good opportunity. But thus far, that's the movie career. I've been spending a lot of time on FileForms as well. So it's a
You're sticking with your day job?
Yeah, certainly.
You're down in Southern Florida. What is something that people might not know about the Fort Lauderdale area, and what would be some hidden gems down there if somebody's down there visiting?
Oh man, well I would have to go ahead and suggest going to Quarter Deck, which is a local seafood spot down here in Fort Lauderdale. I actually used to work there when I was a kid as a food runner. I was actually there last night watching the national championship game, which was fun. So there's a ton of great seafood spots. Southport Raw Bar is another great one on the water. And then a lot of folks don't know that Fort Lauderdale claims that it invented spring break. So a lot of folks in my parents' generation probably recall the Elbow Room down on A1A and Las Olas Boulevard. That's a must-see spot if folks are planning to come down south.
Well, I always wanted to go down there for spring training, so maybe I'll have to hit a couple of
come on down. It'd be fun to have you, Mark.
Down there. And I always recommend to people if you have with kids, or if you want to understand the value of hard work, food service.
Yeah.
Whatever it is. Hospitality, be a waiter, line cook, dishwasher. You want to learn the value of customer service. You want to learn the value of hard work.
That's where it starts. That's where
right.
it starts. Working for tips.
Finally, is there a book or podcast that you'd recommend to the listeners?
Well, outside of this podcast, I would say
Nicely done, Frank.
I did read over the holiday the book called Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell. He's a legend in kind of inspiring entrepreneurs that are building software companies specifically. I also read his book, Software as a Science, as well. But if you're really looking to make 2026 even a better year than 2025 and do that in a way that keeps your head sane and keeps a smile on your face, I think it's a great read. And that's what I'd recommend.
Buy back your time. Okay.
Buy back your time. Yep, that's it.
I'm going to do it. Well, Frank, this has been great. Thanks so much for coming on the podcast.
My pleasure, Mark. Thanks for having me.